Hi everyone, it's Andy from Hobby Headquarters. Well, as you can see, I've got a little bit different type of video for you guys today. I started off about a week or so ago building this T55, and it kind of progressed into I was going to build a little diorama for it and build it all together. And then I thought about wanting to do one of those explosions. I've seen so many of those explosions on other modeling sites, and I go, I want to try one of those. So I've spent the last couple of days experimenting and playing around with it, and I came out with this right here and had a blast doing it. It's always really good to be creative rather than just follow instructions on a kit, but to really change it up on it. So like I said, I had a great time doing this. This video is going to be everything. It's going to be the T55 build, the diorama build, as well as the explosion part on there. And it's actually easy to do. It's very simple products you can get a hold of, and you should have a lot of fun. So, hi everyone, it's Andy from Hobby Headquarters, and I have with me today
Ben from the UK.
Let's get started. Okay, the first thing we want to do is get going on the diorama base because there's a lot of drying time, and while that's drying we can start working on the model. Now what you can see right here is we have our wooden base that I've taken a router and routed out all the edges, and we have our piece of real dense insulation foam right here that I've cut to match the exact top of it here. And I've also cut a little extra piece for this piece right on this corner to give a little elevation to our diorama so we don't have everything so just all flat across the top. Now, we're going to go ahead and use Gorilla Glue, and this bonds virtually everything and works really good on the foam. The only thing we want to do first is it helps to make the glue stick a little bit as if we score the back of this. Put some random scores with a knife on it here. That way, because this turns into a foam when you wet it, and the foam will seep into all those little scratches that we put on. We're going to put a lot more than that actually on too, and it'll really bond it really well. Now, the one thing you have to be careful with on this particular glue is that because it expands so much, you want to put some really heavy weight up on top of it to make sure it stays in place and doesn't slide all over the place. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Okay, and then about 30 to 45 minutes after you lay down the plaster, it's still pliable enough that we can go back and take the tracks and lay them in there. We want to give the impression that it's a heavy vehicle that it's going through here. And once you get those, and of course measure them out too to make sure it matches up to the vehicle that you're building. And also it's still soft enough that we can go in there and start smoothing out some of these little rougher areas. We are still going to put some of the grout down to give it a dirt effect, but we want it to be not so rough in this area. So when we put the grass, it'll look a little bit more natural. Okay, we're going to start off building the kit now, and one thing that I really like about this kit is not only is it very detailed, it's very easy to put together, and it's designed as such that it's just really a breeze. As you can see right here, we have all of our road wheels. We're putting the assemblies together, and each one of those has a poly cap inside, and the poly cap will help it so we can take these wheels on and off as we want to paint them. And it's really simple. Put the poly cap in, glue the two sides together, lining them up right there. You'll also notice too that I haven't sanded any of these yet, and the reason I don't sand them right away is I like to glue them together, then sand it as one piece. And when you sand it as one piece, it just makes your sanding time go that much quicker because you're just sanding down the middle of each one of the road wheels. And you'll get all those nice and sanded out. Now these are ones that I've already built already. These are ready to go. And you can see we got some sanding done on that. Also, the drive sprocket is the exact same way. We have a large poly cap inside of this one. And that gets glued together just like that. You can see it lines right up, and that is ready to go, as well as the idler. It has a polycap too. So with all of these polycaps inside here, it'll make it much, much easier to put the tracks and the suspension and all the other parts on. So I'm going to get all of these glued up, and we're going to show you how the hull goes together. Okay, now we're putting the suspension arms in. And they have a very specific way and very specific numbers that you want to put them in. That way you get everything to line up. So obviously there's 4 going this direction, and the very final one goes the opposite direction. And then there is a little extra piece of suspension that will go into place right here, which tweezers are going to be very helpful to get that in, because you can see it locks right inside there. Rather than try to do it by hand, tweezers are going to be much easier. Might have to flex it a little bit, and then you could just slide it in like that. And just keep an eye on the numbers, because there are 4 different pieces of suspension arm that you can put on, and you want to make sure you obviously put the right ones in the right spot so all of your suspension lines up. And once that gets put on, we can put part of our final drive right here into place. And then, of course, once that gets put on, we can go ahead and just slide these into place temporarily. Because they have polycaps, they'll come right back off again. So that's what makes it so nice and easy to put in this kit together. So I'm going to go ahead and put all of the suspension arms, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, now we're just going ahead and attaching some of the hull accessories, like the brackets that go in the back here that hold up the extra fuel tanks. You'll also notice that I have all of the wheels in place right now, even though we don't really need to put them in place. And that is for the one reason we want to make sure that all of them touch the ground properly. So before I let everything fully dry, we put all the wheels on. I put a little bit of weight up on top of this to let it dry so that all the wheels touch the ground. And there's usually very little chance that that's going to happen, but just in case, we want to make sure everything's really flush on the ground. So we're going to go ahead and put the rest of the accessories on, including these other brackets back here, and then we'll move on to the next step. Now we're going to start working on the upper part of the hull here. And we're putting on these little side pieces, these little flares that stick out. And Tamiya has made it in such a way that you can only put the right one on the right side no matter what. You can't put it on because of the little pegs that they've installed on it. And I'm just kind of showing you a little bit of how this model goes together, because it is such an easy to put together kit. You aren't going to really have much problem with it at all. And then the last little thing is we need to put on is this exhaust area here. And then we will be able to go ahead and pop this right into place here. It lines up a little bit. It lines up pretty easy, right? Just like that. And then the only other thing we have to put on back here is the engine deck. And as you can see, we've got quite a bit of this to go along. Now, I'm going ahead also, and I'm going to put all of these supports down the side fenders as well. So within a matter of, I'd say about 2 hours, you can have most of the lower hull already assembled. Now, the tracks that are included on this are the rubber band style tracks. So I know some of you guys don't like those much, some of them do. So I don't mind these right here. I think they're pretty decently detailed. And once we put these on, we can glue down and make the sag inside of it. And we're going to put this in a diorama, so it's going to be full of mud and anything. So to buy a $50 set of tracks doesn't really make sense for this particular build. But these are the newer type of tracks, so they put together nicely just with regular Tamiya cement. And we've got those glued, and then I just put a little clamp on them and let them sit up for about, maybe about half an hour, and then they're nice and sturdy. And of course, because these all come off, we'll be able to pop these right into place just around there, so, and adjust them accordingly as well too. So let's go ahead and finish up putting the rest of the parts on the upper hull. Okay, we've got a bunch of the other little parts we need to put on now. I just went ahead and glued the mesh that is included with the kit. And actually, this is the one time that the mesh actually turns out to look pretty good. Once you get it glued in the back of the place there, it fits really well. And because it's kind of more of a shadow effect, you don't really notice that it's just like a plastic mesh. And then we've got both of those in the back there. And then there are all of the fuel tanks that are going to get glued into place. Those go right down the line. The big boxes all the ammo boxes, all the extra fuel tanks, and you can see how they all just kind of line right up and pop right into place. So I'll get all of those glued into place and we'll show you what the next step is. Okay, we're going to take a quick little break from sanding on, working on the lower hull. Most of the lower hull is complete right now. And what I thought I would do now is we'd work on part of the explosion area that we're gonna put into this. Now I found this light bulb. It's an LED landscape T3 bulb, and it's a 12 volt, so it means we don't have to hook it up to regular AC current. We can use 9-volt batteries on it. And what I love about this one is, first of all, it's bright. There are 250 lumens in it, and it is complete light all the way around, including on top. So that's my extra bulb. It came with 2. What I've done on this is I've taken one of them and I've soldered a couple of wire leads to it and then put some shrink tubing around it to seal that in. And while the soldering iron was nice and hot, I just burned a hole straight through the bottom of it down there. So we'll be able to take these through. And I'm going to build a little box inside of here to hold the light up. But we want the light probably right about in that position right there. And we'll have it, of course, sticking up. And I have just a little 9-volt battery here. And you'll be able to see how bright this thing actually is. So you can see right there, it's a real bright bulb, and it's putting light in every direction. And, of course, we're going to use some cotton. This is just a cotton ball that we've got stretched out, but to give you a general idea. And we're going to obviously do a lot better job on it, and then paint it, but hopefully we can get the wire back on here. There you go. So once we paint that, and then we have part of the turret getting blown off, it'll be a little bit higher, because I also have some chicken wire here too, which we're going to make the base on, and that is going to support the turret, because I want the turret probably about this high right here, and probably the light about that high. So the thing took a round right in and is blowing the turret off to the side. So I'm going to go ahead and start building the light box that is going to hold that light bulb up in the air for us right now. Okay, what I did was I just took some strip styrene, and we just super glued 3 of those little things to the right height that would put the first light bulb just above the base here. And we will attach this inside once we get all the painting done, because obviously the turret comes off real easily, and then we don't want to have to worry about getting paint on our light bulb right here. But quick and easy enough, and we have our light ready to go. And now we can take our chicken wire, and very, very carefully, because there's a lot of sharp edges on this stuff, we're going to start bending it into the shape of the explosion, because we want all these sharp wires obviously down inside the hull of the vehicle. And we'll just start shaping it. And then if we have to do any trimming, so we're going to want like the fireball coming out just like this. So I'll mess around with this for a little while. We're not attaching any of this now either, because we obviously want to paint the entire vehicle, get it all, basically build it as if it was a regular tank, and then we're going to add all of this stuff in. I just thought I'd take a little break and start working on all this, but you can see we'd get a nice big fireball just like that. I think that would look pretty cool, having this turret get blown off to the side. Okay, we've got the wire mesh in the general shape that we want, with the turret getting blown to the side here. And what we're going to use now is just cotton balls that you can just unwind here, get that shape, and then we'll gradually just shape them around the fireball frame. Finding the edge is always the fun part on these. And then we'll gradually work it. Yeah, there it is. And just kind of build this up, and then stretching some out, because we want some areas to be thicker and thinner. And it'll take a little bit of time, but we'll manipulate that all into a nice little ball. Now with the cotton wrapped completely around, I'm taking my airbrush, and we're going to start off with some clear orange and build up our base of the color that we want on it. Making sure we get all of it completely done and hiding any of the white that we might have remaining. We're going to take some red, and any of the little crevices we're going to fill in there to give it some dimension to our fireball. And finally we're going to go over with a little yellow just to put some highlights very last thing we're going to do is take a little black and just create some of the soot effect, not too much of it because it's the very early stage of the explosion, but we want to have a little bit on there, and once the light bulb goes in it, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about, that it adds a nice little effect to it, gives it some depth. Okay, we manipulated the cotton a little bit and we've just placed it in there right now. I've also went ahead and glued the light temporarily in, just so we can get an idea how this is going to look, and just place that up on top there. We'll play around a lot more with it once the vehicle is painted, but here we go. Yeah, I think that looks pretty much like an explosion going off. Okay, now that we've got the test on the turret and the explosion all looking right, we're going ahead and attaching all the little accessories on here. The barrel on this kit is a two-piece barrel split down the middle, which we're working on the seam right now, going over and over and over again using real fine sandpaper, which we should get that pretty good, and then that'll just get glued into place here. I am going to leave this one turret hatch open as if it got blown open as the turret gets flipped around, and then there are a bunch of little hooks and other little accessories that we're going to glue on, but nothing super spectacularly hard to do. So I've got maybe about another 15-20 minutes of putting on accessories here, and that is basically the completed part of the build on the turret. So once I get that done, I'm going to come back and show you, then we can start painting the vehicle. And here is the mostly complete model we have built up here. There are a few little minor things like some tools and some track links and some tow cables that we haven't put on, but we put those on last after we're done painting. You'll also notice that the entire model is black right now, and that is because I sprayed it with NATO black, and that was to test to make sure that we didn't have any seam lines going down the back of the barrels, and of course the seam on the barrel of the actual gun barrel too. We want to make sure it was gone. So one of the reasons too I chose to use the T55 model, and that was looking at some pictures online of the real tanks, and it doesn't appear to have much of a turret basket, if at all. So when we make the explosion on it, we don't have to worry about a turret basket getting in the way and trying to put that inside all the wiring in the explosion part. So this worked out good all the way around. Plus, it's an easy and very beautiful model to put together. So now that we've done this, we still want to do all of the weathering that we would normally do on the model, which we're going to do right now. So we've got our black coat already on there, so now we're going to put our white highlight coat, and then we are going to spray the entire thing with some Russian modern day green from Mission Models. Okay, you can see what the paint job looks like right now. We've taken it and put a couple of coats on. I know that first coat always looks a little bright, and then I missed just a light little amount of some dark Russian green over it to kind of darken it up just slightly. And we've taken it and completely dull coated the entire model to seal in our paint job. We've put a little Mark Fit Strong down, and now we're just putting the 2 decals that come in the entire kit. And then after we get that on, put a little bit more on top of it, let that soak in, and after it fully dries, we're going to take it and shoot it again with another coat of dull coat. Now I'm taking a mixture of Mod Podge matte and 50% of that and 50% water to make a slurry that we're going to put down over the entire diorama, everywhere except for the track patterns. We don't want to hide any of that track pattern at all. And with the Mod Podge on, we're just going to use some of our sanded grout that we are going to put a liberal coat over the entire model with our shaker here. And it's alright if any of it gets inside of there, we can blow most of that out. We just don't want to hide all the track marks that we spent all the time putting in. Now we're just taking a couple of different types of Tamiya paint, including some desert yellow and some dark yellow, some earth brown, as well as a little NATO brown, and kind of just blending all of the color together so we get a more uniform appearance. So anywhere like where the tracks have been, we're going to darken that up slightly to give it the appearance of fresh dirt. Now with the glue down, I'm going to go ahead and use my new little toy I got actually about 2 months ago now. This is the new Woodland Scenic static grass applicator, and I've done a lot of experimenting with it, and it works very, very well. Now I'm installing some tree type bushes for the side right here. Now I've made these up myself. In fact, I've used them quite a few times in other videos that I've made that you'll be able to go back and take a look at how those got assembled. We're just going to put 2 of them kind of staggered and stacked back here to give it a little bit of height to the diorama other than the tank itself. And we'll glue those right into place with a little Mod Podge. You might also notice too, we've also sprinkled a little bit more of debris around some of the little ruts on the side. And now I'm just taking some of the pigment powders, different variations of colors, like light sienna and a few other colors that we're going to go in there and kind of blend more, even more so after the paint job, and make it kind of a dusty, dirty type of look to it. Give it a more natural appearance to it. Now I'm just adding a few little weeds into the mix here, and we did the weeds same way we did the grass, but we did it on wax paper to make little sprouts, and then sprinkle it with a little Woodland Scenic's pollen fiber, so we have some purple and some yellow flowers growing on some of these weeds here. And we're just using some Mod Podge to hold it down in place so that'll dry completely clear and flat. Okay, right now I'm just putting a little enamel thinner on our model because we're going to use a variety of rust, dark rust, and a little bit of like a dark brown for green. And we're going to put a little weathering onto this. And to start off, we're going to use a little bit of the dark brown. I'm going to kind of tap it into some of these areas here. We can also add a little touch of the redder rust color. And we put it on kind of heavy to start with. But that's why we put the enamel thinner on too, because it's going to make it flow a lot easier. And then using our same big brush again, we're going to start streaking that down. And this is a new brush I'm using from AK. This is one that's already got the splits already inside of it there. So we get kind of an uneven pattern as we pull it down. And I'm not going to go super crazy on weathering this because this video is more about, you know, destroying the tank rather than making it look like it was destroyed out in the weather. But you get a general idea, and then you can just keep pulling these down. I'm also going to use this Summer Curse Earth, and what this is a pigment and a weathering wash, a pigment and a wash together that will create a nice dirt deposits all over the vehicle too. So we'll put a little bit up inside these areas here to make around the fenders. And of course we're going to work on the tracks as well with that. So this is, you guys probably have seen me do it a million times with this stuff, but it's the same process. We're going to put a little bit on and then kind of tap some areas and even touch maybe of a lighter rust around some of these, some fresher stuff, and then we can drag it out. Just like that. Now I'm taking a little bit of an engine grime still with a touch maybe of the rust on the brush. And you can see we've started to do some layering on here, and this is just really going to make all these little bumps and nuts and bolts and any of these pieces I hear really pop out. You can see we've already done some of these with one coat, and we're going back and giving it another. And in this area, you don't necessarily have to streak it. You can kind of just blot it on, and it'll form just the way, you know, grime would start forming on it. And we want to make sure we want to do all of these. For these areas, it's going to be easier to just put a little extra thinner onto it, like that, and you can see it fills in there, and when that dries, it's really going to make all that detail pop right out. I guess I had a lot more of the rust on that brush than I thought after I put it in the thinner. But it's all right. Once we get it on there and it dries, if you want to, you can always take your soft brush and kind of soak up some of the excess. And that'll leave just the grime and rust and stuff inside those cracks, which really makes it pop out. And as I was telling you earlier, this is where we're going to put some of that summer Kursk earth. I want to build it up in all the little cracks, and especially around the tracks too. I've decided after working on the diorama a little bit that although we made those deep ruts for the tracks to go through, I'm going to make it in the sense that it's actually not mud. It's more of a soft soil that it's tearing up. And that way we won't have to put mud all over everything to make and hide a lot of our detail, because we can really beat up the tracks quite a bit now. Put lots of dirt and grime and stuff inside of them. You can even put a little bit of this Kursk earth around some of these areas here. Just anywhere you think dirt might accumulate, especially in these welds. It always looks really good in there. And then once again, you can always add just a little bit more thinner to it. Make it flow a little better. And this is obviously going to dry a lot lighter than the way it looks right here, but it's going to give it a nice dirty, dusty effect. Now you guys also might notice too that we have glued in the light. I decided to go ahead and do that because I'm going to weather the turret separately anyway, because the turret is not going to be on top of this vehicle anymore. But the light is glued into place there. I was looking at the vehicle and realizing it was missing something, and that was we had forgot to put any little scratches and chips on it. So we're going to go back. We can do it over and top and just put another layer of some of the washes on. But right now I'm just using a torn foam, piece of foam basically, and we've dipped it in a little bit of NATO black. Get some of the chips, because we want the chips to be kind of dark on this, because if you use the lighter colors, they don't show up as well. And we're going to put a little bit of weathering agents over on top of it too, to kind of blend it together. But we want to have a few scratches all over the place on this as well. Okay, we've gone and installed the fireball into place, and now we're just taking a pair of tweezers and kind of stretching it out to fill the area around underneath the turret. And any of these areas where we get a little bit of extra white sticking through, we'll go back in with our airbrush and airbrush a little bit more of the yellow or red color, whatever color we decide to put on it right there. But this way we're going to get a more full flame, as if it's blowing the turret straight off the top. And yes, I know the flame without the light on it looks kind of unusual, but we know what it looks like once we put that big bright light underneath there. It really adds some really niceness to it. And while all the bushes and all that stuff are still drying, we're going to go ahead and feed the wires through the hole that we drilled. And we drilled the hole all the way through, including the wood underneath there. I guess we're going to have to feed them one at a time. They want to get stuck in there. And I had to add some more leads onto it. I wasn't thinking straight when I put the first ones on. I should have made them much longer to start. And then we can gradually pull it through. And seat the tank right where we need it to go. decided to turn the light on while we're doing the next step, so it's not so distracting how bad that thing looks without the light on. What we're doing now is we're just taking some pigment powders and kind of blending in the tank with the surrounding dirt that we put down a little while ago. Not too heavy, but we want to blend it in enough to make it look like it's got a little bit of the surrounding terrain on it. Well, here we are, guys. Here is our completed model. And after lighting it up and getting it into the diorama background, I think it looks really, really cool. It does a nice effect. It makes the effect that it's a millisecond after the initial round hit. In fact, this would probably be a good name for this diorama, would be Kill Shot, because that certainly would have knocked that vehicle out. Now, a lot of you will probably right away say, well, where is the entry penetration from the original round? And I'm kind of assuming that it's hitting on the other side, and I didn't want to poke a hole in this all through that time in case that it didn't look very good. I can always break the light out of here, put the turret back on, and have a pretty nice little T55 that we have too. But after seeing it, I'm really enjoying the way this thing looks right now. So very, very nice looking explosion. Now, of course, the kit is a Tamiya kit. It's from 2002, so it's not brand new, but it's still a relatively modern kit, so it goes together real fast. Only took about a day and a half of actual building. And then, of course, we got to weather it, and you guys saw how we did the flame on it. I will probably be doing more of these, experimenting with some of these flames. Maybe the next one, maybe try to duplicate some, you know, like projectile pieces being blown out of it there. I was going to mess around with that, but I thought, you know what, it looks pretty good the way it is right now, and I don't want to end up damaging it or, you know, messing it up any further. So I hope you guys enjoyed the building, or should I say the destruction of the Tamiya T55 model. I had a lot of fun. It was fun to be creative and kind of mix things up a little more so than normal. If you guys enjoyed the video, please go out there and share it as much as you possibly can. And if you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. Just hit the subscribe button down below there and ring the bell, and that way you'll be notified every time a new video comes out. Also, you can check us out on Instagram at Andy's Hobby Headquarters, and on Facebook at Andy's Hobby Headquarters and the Mediocre Modelers Club. So we have all kinds of social media things you can get a taste of what's happening, especially with Instagram. I give sneak peeks of all the things that I'm working on in the meantime. So I want to thank you guys as always for watching, and please stay tuned because we have more videos coming.